everybody? Wow, too many people here. This is the first week of January 2020, and I get to speak to you. I don't know how. Well, today I'm going to talk a little bit about Hyojeong Won. That's that little house, that white little house. Well, I went to visit Korea a couple of months last year, and in the middle of that, I received the email that we were going to have an inheritance ceremony of Hyojeong Won. And the explanation that came with it, it says, when heavenly parents come down to earth, that's where they will come. And they will be attended by the absolute spirits. This is just incredible. We used to think God is everywhere. But it says when they come down, they're going to come down to their house. And this was just a big moment for me. Incredible. This is one of those big moments I'm sure all of you go through when you join the church. How is this? What does this mean? When God comes down, He's going to come to their house and they will be attended by the good spirits. And what came to me is this. True parents, heavenly parents, are preparing us after true parents have gone. After mother goes to the spirit world, we'll enter into new era, new leader, new mission, and new world totally. And God is preparing us for that. And He wants to guarantee that we will go through safely. It cannot fail. And God is giving us a guarantee, a backup plan. That's Hyojeong Won. Imagine, God's providence have been moving from Adam and Eve until all the way through, and everything is connected from one thing to another. And if you understand all these things, you just cannot fail to think that the true parents are absolutely the true parents. And all this is a house. And it's going through all different kind of images from the beginning. There's a Noah's Ark. There's a Moses tabernacle, an Ark of Covenant, and temple. And then Jesus, after He's gone, I grew up in a Catholic family. And if you go into Catholic church, in the middle, you go into that, in the middle, there's an altar. And in the middle, you see a little box, all painted in gold. It's called tabernacle. Have you ever seen this? Can you show that picture? I like to show this to you because when I was young, this was the center of the faith. You see this? Can you make this thing a little clear? Oh, this part here is placed on top of the altar, and it's gold, about 1.5 foot, and maybe that, and it's totally painted in gold. When Father says a mass, he will genuflect and open the door with a gold key, and you open this, and inside it has a curtain, and it has host. That's a little wafer that's believed to be Jesus' body, his flesh and blood. That's going on from the first until today, 2,000 years. And when Father says a mass, he take that out and multiply to distribute to the people. So all this picture came to my mind it came to Hyojeong Won. Now in today's reading, the first one, Samuel chapter 7. I would have liked read the entire chapter 7, but I'm sure it's too long. The story says, when King David came to land of Canaan, he built himself a house with the cedar tree. That's supposed to be the best lumber. And then he went to bed and thinking, I have this house. I live in this house safely. But I left the tabernacle and Ark of Covenant in the tent. It kind of bothered him. And, I should build a house for them. Now, if you think about this, why would that bother him? Why would that bother? I'll leave that open. And when God saw David was thinking about this, he called Nathan the prophet. He says, David is thinking about building a house for me. David wasn't really thinking about building a house for God. He was bothered by not building a house for the tabernacle. The important point I like to tell you this is that sometimes material things can be a bridge between your heart, your faith, to God when we are all fallen. Why does David was bothered by it if he thinks that's just something? But then God says, he's thinking about building a house for me. Isn't that a remarkable thing? The reason why I like to read the entire chapter 7 is because God says, you are thinking about building a house for me. God says, but I am going to build a house for you and for your family so that you can live in security and safety, and there I will be your father. It sees this house in different ways, and at the end, I will be your father in that family environment. Isn't it amazing? So then you see these three things. Hyojeong Won is a house where God is going to come down to earth and he's going to stay here, and that's his house. And the first reading is about this house that David had to think about because he never got through building that thing. So that I'm talking about these three things, three readings. One from Old Testament, second the New Testament, and the complete Testament. So the third one I'm trying is Hyojeong Won. Can you scroll down a little bit? No, down. In Hyojeong Won, Jesus said many times, the faith have made you well, or faith healed you. I didn't have time to go through, put it in the reading. The first time is, there was a lady who was sick for a long time. And Jesus went by, she thought, if I can just touch the hem of Jesus' cloak, I will be healed. And she did, and she was healed. And the second example is that there was a short man. He heard that Jesus is going by here, and he was so short, and there were too many people. He wanted to see him absolutely. He climbed the tree, and he saw Jesus there. He was happy. He got to see Jesus. When Jesus went by this tree, he stopped there. He says, you come down. So he came down. Not only he got to see him, he got to talk to him. See what happened. And the third example is that there was a centurion one of his men was sick. And I guess he loved him. So this centurion went to Jesus and told him that one of my men is very sick. If you can come to if you're willing, you can cure him. And so Jesus said, okay, I'll go with you to your house. And this Roman soldier said, I'm not sure if it's a Roman soldier, It says, "You're not worthy to come down. I'm not worthy to come under my roof. Just to say a word, he will be healed. I also have a man under me. If I tell them go, they'll go. If I say come, they'll come. So just say a word." Of course, Jesus looked around and says, "I haven't seen any faith among Jewish people. Of course, your faith has healed." So faith, very important part of all this process. We know that's the foundation. So I'm going through a little bit the history. I just said God must be preparing us to go through one era to next big change, and you cannot fail. Let's look back a little bit. When Moses was in Egypt, God tried to raise them a tribal level, and they have to go through a change from tribal level to national level, from symbolic era to image era, and they have to go through this passage. And when, of course, people had to absolutely follow Moses and believed in him and follow all the way. And as soon as God sees the first national course that Moses was leading, it failed. So God knew that there is a possibility that they will have a problem going through. So in the second national course, Moses went to the mountain. God instructed him to build a tabernacle. And that was kind of like a backup. So I think you have studied this in Divine Principle, exactly what had happened. Would you like to read this? Actually, because it must be for a while since you read the principle. It's not very long. Let's see what this tabernacle means. It says, "Nevertheless, Israelites repeatedly fell into faithlessness during their journey. In the end, there was a danger that even Moses might actually faithless. To cope with this situation, God set up an object of faith, one which would remain unchanged even though the people might change. As long as one person revered the object with absolute faith, God could continue the providential will through him. That person would inherit the mission to attend the object of faith as a baton to hand it from one runner to the next in a relay. The tabernacle enshrining the Ark of the Covenant and the tablets of stone was this object of faith. Since the tabernacle represented the Messiah, when the Israelites built the tabernacle, it signified the Messiah had already come in a symbolic sense. The Israelites were to revere and honor the tabernacle as if it were the Messiah and to return to the blessed land of Canaan under Moses' leadership. Thus, they would establish the national foundation of substance. Actually, every word here is very important. I'm sure you went through this many times, so I wouldn't go through. So God gave Israelites a tabernacle so that as long as, even if they cannot believe in Moses, they cannot believe everything what God says, as long as they attend with an absolute sincerity, they would have fulfilled the mission. I sometimes wonder, is it easier to believe in Moses, or is it easier to believe in tabernacle? You think it makes it easier to believe in tabernacle than believe in Moses? God thinks so, and I also think so too. It's kind of hard to believe in person that changes all the time. And sometimes you like them, sometimes you don't, sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't agree. The thing is there. So you believe in that, it takes your faith. God understands this aspect. And not only that, the another important thing is, when God constructed them to build the tabernacle, He makes sure the whole thing is built with gold. If you have built that with gold, we wouldn't live there, like that all week, nobody attends. Anyway, God made this thing total gold, silver, the best material, and it was instructed every inch how to do it, with an absolute direction. So, people, even if they don't believe in this object, they understand what attention, what a detailed direction God has given to them. They remember God's work. So they believe in God in that way. So it was very important to believe in the tabernacle, thinking what God had done to go through to build this thing. So this has to be done like that way. So that is why, in that sense, it's easier indirectly to believe in tabernacle than Moses and God's words. So people, we are a little bit physical. So physical presence, it can be a bridge, like the King David. He thought that, he was thinking about building a house for tabernacle, but God says, you're trying to build a house for me. So when tabernacle, God gave to them as a backup plan. If you couldn't believe or follow Moses, if you believe this tabernacle, you would be considered fulfilling your mission. That was the purpose. There's some more details down there. Once more about the Moses. This is absolutely important to be able to understand what Hyojeong Won is. To my mind, it seems like this has nothing to do with the theology anymore. It's not theological or anything. We are in the era of Hyojeong, filial piety. It's not correct theologically or not. Whether God can stay in this house is not. That is our heart, our filiality. Let's see another part here. What happened? What happened if Moses and people succeeded in their first national course? Of course, it failed from the first. But what happened if they didn't fall? This is what it says. If the Israelites had trusted Moses and entered Canaan in the first national course, Moses' family would have served in the role of tabernacle. And Moses himself would have fulfilled the role which was taken by the tablets of the stone and the Ark of the Covenant. Moses' family would have become the bearer of a heavenly law. Moses' family would have become the bearer of a heavenly law. Their family becomes the law itself. The Israelites could then have built the temple in the land of Canaan without any need for the tablets of stone, the ark, or the tabernacle. These were given as the means of salvation only after the people had become faithless. The tabernacle, as the representation of the symbol of Jesus and his would-be bride, was needed only until the construction of the temple. The temple, as the representation in the image of Jesus and his would-be bride, was needed only until the Messiah's coming as the temple. So when these things are given as a backup, an alternative plan, that's always temporary for specific reasons. Now, in saying this, in the back of my mind, you think about Hyojeong Won. To what capacity, when, and why it was sent, the value of this thing. It specifically states in the divine principle why, when, how, till when it's needed. So if Israelites succeeded in the first national course, tablets of stone, tabernacle, nothing would have been necessary. And they would have fulfilled in 21 days. And just go through 21 days, landed in land of Canaan, ready to build the temple and wait for Jesus. That was. But when people do not have this faith, this absolute faith that's required, it just prolonged and prolonged, and that's what happened. But there was another detail about this tabernacle during the Moses time. Let's read one more paragraph. Moses used his staff to guide the way and split the Red Sea in two. Likewise, Joshua placed the Ark of Covenant in front of the troop. When they were going through River Jordan, they placed the Ark of Covenant in front of the procession. They followed this. And guide their way. When the priest bearing the Ark of Covenant entered the Jordan River, the waters parted, opening the way for the people following the Ark of walk. There must be something wrong. On the riverbed, Moses' staff symbolized Jesus. Similarly, the ark containing the tablets of stone, manna, and Aaron's staff symbolized Jesus and his would-be bride. Therefore, the parting of the Jordan River before the ark, which allowed the Israelites to enter the land of Canaan safely, it foreshadowed what would happen in the presence of Jesus and his bride. Sinful humanity, symbolized by water, would be divided between the righteous and the wicked and face the judgment. All faithful believers would then complete the restoration of the Canaan worldwide. What's so incredible here is when Jesus comes with his bride, it will be divided into righteous and wicked, and they'll face the judgment. And the believers will be able to go through the next era. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but remember that don't quote me in this. The mission of the true parents, it is to complete what Jesus couldn't have done and should have done. Now, where are we now? When true parents all go spirit world and we have our new mission, that's exactly what he's talking about. You understand what I'm trying to say? Yes. The world will be divided into two. And after it's divided, they'll face judgment, and the believers will be able to go through the next era. That's what it's saying. And this is discussed in Moses' time. Now, I just said a few minutes ago, this is what I thought when true parents gave us Hyojeong Won. They are preparing us to go through the next era. When true parents go all spirit world, they will be finishing their mission. So now I'm not going to talk too much about this. We are entering into a new era. And God has an incredible amount of love, so that without so much effort, if we have an absolute faith in this, we will be able to go through safely. And you don't talk about whether true parents are right or wrong. Mother said something right or wrong. That's not the question whatsoever. And that's actually a stumbling block, and you can fall into that. And that's why we need an absolute faith. They should be able to say anything they want, feel the way they want to. We should absolutely able to justify that. Oh yes, mother said this. Oh yeah, because of that. You can never say, oh, that's wrong, my father didn't say, or anything like that. It's very important that absolute faith is required to go through this thing safely. So let's say, I said, we are going into a new era. So, which era are we in now? And which era are we going into? Isn't, wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to know? For me, I really do. Well, in Divine Principle, in the beginning of Introduction to Restoration, just in the second part in the beginning, there's a section that has entire restoration period divided into 4 parts. Do you remember? And this 4 division is considered into 6 different categories. And the first part is like preparation, and second part symbolic, and then image, and then substantial. It's divided these 4 very neatly, 2,000 years like that. And there are 6 categories, and I wouldn't go through all, but there are 3 categories. This is very relevant right now, because when we study Divine Principle, I don't think we really study deeply into this. And so let's go through very important part. I just consider 3 of them fast. I just said symbolic, image, substantial, 2,000. First part is lay the foundation. Second is Old Testament, New Testament, complete testament. And let's see. So this is all providence divided into 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4th one is important to know. That starts after the true parents are gone. And this is so astonishing to me. We believe, we really wish that true parents do everything. And they're supposed to be the Messiah. They should be able to conclude, finish everything. And I thought that's the way it is, and that's the way it should be. But that doesn't seem to be that way at all. The first division, it all says after the second coming. Now, in English, if you say after, it doesn't include true parents. It starts after. So what are we going to do? So that's how it's divided, and there are 6 categories. Let's see just the 3 of them kind of briefly what they're talking about. Okay, next one. Okay, this one, there are 6 categories. This one has something to do with who's responsible for this period. Who is responsible for this era? And it says, during the period when the providence restoration is to be completed after the second coming of Christ. That's when true parents are gone. We left us alone here. The people of faith on earth and in heaven are to bear the responsibility to defeat Satan, the fallen archangel, and complete the providence of restoration. They are to achieve this in accordance with the principle of creation, which lays out the way for human beings to gain the qualifications to rule the angels. Hence, this period is called Age of the Providence, based on believers' responsibility. So we are entering into new era, and we are the one that have to complete the restoration, and that mission is to finally defeat the Satan. Now, Satan is spiritual, right? Imagine what we are called to. I was probably a big mistake to join this group, you know. It's really incredible. It's the believer's responsibility, the new era. I think this is just too much to really face. Now that's to the next one. It's a believer's responsibility. Well, we already did that. And then this one is also amazing. 2.3, the ages categorized with reference to the providence to restore through indemnity the lost period of faith. We're supposed to completely restore the faith that Adam had lost in the beginning. We have to gain the lost faith. Adam and Eve didn't believe in God, so we're the one has to restore this. So the faith, the absolute necessity of faith, we have to finish that. That's a new era's requirement. We have to restore the lost period of faith. Isn't it amazing? Father would say something like this. I mean, it's just incredible for me. I'm so small and everything. I don't know. I'm like this. So we are supposed to regain the faith that we have lost in the beginning. And that has to be done by us by the end of this era. And then another one, incredible, is, the age is categorized with reference to the expanding scope of the foundation for the Messiah. Well, we thought the foundation of the Messiah has finished because the true parents already came, right? Well, it seems like the foundation of Messiah has to be fulfilled every era separately. So imagine, even new era comes, foundation of the Messiah has to be established again. Foundation of the Messiah, that is foundation of faith and the substance. So it says, during the period when the providence rest completed after the second coming of Christ, God will complete the cosmic foundation for the Messiah by working throughout heaven and earth based on the complete Testament word. Hence, this period called the Age of the Providence complete cosmic foundation for the Messiah. And it says God will work the indemnity. Of course, God is not going to pay the indemnity, right? Is it saying that God is going to pay the indemnity? So the believers has to pay the indemnity in order to be able to establish a foundation of faith in cosmic era. But we really have to get together really strongly, see what we need to do. This is not you can't just wait until, something would happen. That's new era. So we're entering into new era like this. So God already sees a lot of failure on the way. God is sending Hyojeong Won to back up this. We need to have an absolute faith on Hyojeong Won. And we absolutely need to know and believe heavenly parents, absolute spirits dwell in this. And you can't just treat it like some kind of a motel when he comes and goes wherever he wants. We would have to attend absolutely anytime when he comes, anytime he goes. So you can't imagine the spirit of attentiveness. We know how it is in kingdom, in the king side, So the importance of Hyojeong Won. Am I reading this too much into it? Hyojeong Won, this house, is incredible. That's a new era we are entering into. Let's just consider something about the content of this new thing. When Noah's Ark, there was, what's in there. And Noah's Ark also was cosmos. And when Moses' tabernacle, it also signifies cosmos. Inner and outer, it has Ark of Covenant. Ark of Covenant has Moses' staff, manner, and stones of tablets. And Jesus is temple is Jesus and body in itself. So Hyojeong Won, the content, inner content is God himself. And the substance, if we believe in God, and if we really know God is present in there, we can't just, we are not used to What does it mean by attending God in a substantial way? How important this is. We really need to think a lot about this. So when we all done, let's say we entered into new era, what kind of world would this be? Do you remember when Father, couple of years before he passed away, he had this book. Oh, maybe this shows here. Do you remember this folder? You remember? Father had this about 2 years before he passed away. Every day he had this thing. Remember? And I think it has here, right here. The title, this thing is in Korean, but title of this thing is something like a settlement, or it should say, can you move on a little bit? The title of this book or speech is called Cosmic Assembly for the Settlement of the True Parents, Heaven and Earth, and Humankind, and for the proclamation of the Word by God's substantial self. It means the Word, present, substantial, and it's settled, and God is proclaiming. That's so. So if you go through this book, we read it all the time. What's in there, it seems like something like Korea's Korean Peninsula is going to be God's land. True victory, recovery of true love. Establishment of heavenly calendar. We're supposed to live by new calendar. There is no more boundary, national boundary or any kind of boundary will exist. And the next one is when the substantial Cheonilguk becomes manifest itself on earth, the leadership would be composed half representative from the earth, half representative by the spirit world. Do you remember this Father saying? It's called Yeonyeonse. It means that the highest leadership, half will be people, the other will be spirit world. Who will not obey to this? That's what's going to happen when the new era comes. And true parents' word will be the law. Like Moses was supposed to be the law. And true parents' word is going to be the law itself, no constant. There will be no more elections. Do you remember? That's going to be new era like that kind. Before that, we need to move that into new era, and that's our responsibility. And I think it's much easier for me. As soon as I know we have a Hyojeong Won, it's much easier to have a Hyojeong Won in your heart. God is in there. So it's much easier that way, and you can really able to attend and believe in this much better. Then God is everywhere, of course. True parents, they are. And for me, it's much easier to believe and to see if we actually perfected in the bottom of our spirit self, we should be able to meet God in a substantial way. Do you agree? We should be able to identify in a concrete way God is in me in a substantial way. But if I haven't reached that point, it's easier to have a Hyojeong Won, that little white house inside of me. God is in there. Do you agree with that? Yes. So the importance of Hyojeong Won, and you have to have an absolute faith in this, and it's just kind of a discouraging. So this little house, what kind of faith it requires? The importance of this Hyojeong Won. And Mother changed this into Hyojeong Won. It means you have to have this unity family level, not an individual level. It means not only you should be able to identify God within your own spirit, but within the family. That's what Hyojeong Won is. So then, a little bit more, when Moses received this tabernacle, because this symbolizes Jesus, it's supposed to have a foundation of faith, foundation of substance. You're supposed to have that in order to receive this. So in order to receive the Hyojeong Won, you also have to have that. That is a 330 couple blessing, vertically, horizontally. And also you have to have a material supply, gold and silver, and all these things is required to receive. So remember, in order to go through the new era safely, you must first go through the requirement of receiving the Hyojeong Won. For me, it's just so far. So for me, it's just like that little man heard that Jesus is going by. I'm going to climb up the tree and see what's going on here. For me, I'm going to climb the tree and see Jesus is going by. Imagine the enormous responsibility and magnitude of this mission that we have received. And if you look at the world today, they're all waiting for us to fulfill this mission. And so, even if we're not so strong people, you should really believe in the magnitude of your mission. The importance is God placed on your mission. So, for me, I'm just have a little consolation. Are you supposed to follow me, or I'm supposed to follow you? It's very important to understand. And I'm glad I have you all to follow. Do you understand? So if you succeed, I can just follow. So please, for there are millions of people like me, look to you to fulfill your mission. You understand you are blessed center of families who have an absolute faith in Hyojeong Won. God is giving this to us with an enormous faith from Adam and Eve to reach this point. And it's time for us to respond to his love. Thank you very much. Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, when we have our own children, the happiest moment is when our children understand our heart, which is the most powerful to move the true parents, or most powerful to move Heavenly Parents. So Heavenly Father, we are going through this precious, very important time. The whole world is in a mess. That's because Heavenly Parents are present in this world. Heavenly Parents, there are still not so many people that understand this. So, Hyojeong Won, if we come near there, the more physically you go there and try to pray so that we will be able to understand. We'll be able to get some of the spirits touched to us physically and spiritually so that we'll be able to understand deeper and more powerful people so that we will be able to understand and respond to the enormous God's heart that he's trying to show to us from the beginning. Heavenly Father, thank you very much. I pray all this in the name of our true parents, all the blessed center of families. Adieu.